Alright, this is the fourth or fifth take. I've lost count. And I'm going to try to just read this straight through, and so I can get it in, because frustration is starting to set in. So I'm going to read the quotation from Heidegger that initiated, that is one needs to have read or heard in order to understand what I'm talking about at the beginning of the meditation. And the quotation from Heidegger is, "In the first beginning, deep wonder; in another beginning, deep foreboding." In the first beginning, deep wonder; in another beginning, deep foreboding. What does it mean to proceed with the mark of the two beginnings? What follows from the bearing that is marked by the two beginnings? If learning is a relational process unfolding within the twofold play, then the give and take is an ongoing event that draws upon the preservation of natality. Learning is a wandering that is always constantly moved by the reception of evocative saying that reposes the apprentice. Learning is thus an ongoing event that is continuously initiated. To describe it as continuously initiated is also to identify spontaneity, improvisation, natality at the root of learning. As we've said above, these roots, which represent the destiny of our being, are rediscovered when the apprentice wanders out upon the open, unstable field and breaks the ground. This destiny is offered as a message, a tidings that turns the apprentice around. This message, passed along through evocative speech, quote, is the grounding attunement that calls to us startled dismay, provoked irritation, reservedness, deep awe, intimating deep foreboding, end quote. The allegory is thus the story of learning's destiny as the ongoing returning of beings to the horizon as an open field of relatedness, initiated perpetually by the grounding attunement that draws beings into the proper relation with being. Learning is the ongoing cultivation of the community moved on by the originary grounding attunement. But this originary grounding attunement is always marked by the two beginnings, the mix of wonder and foreboding. The turning away from and the return to the prison, these are the two beginnings that mark the way of learning. In the bowels of the cave we encounter the real source of this deep foreboding that appears with the grounding attunement, the evocative saying. The story must be received with a mix of wonder, awe, and deep foreboding. We now understand why it was the story was identified as a tragic tale, one that compels us to reconcile and think the opposites of oppression and liberation, bondage of freedom. This is a tale in the tradition of the blues that intends to recollect our memory of trial and tribulation, of struggle against the forces of oppression, and the hope of overcoming this through the ever-expanding gathering of others and the cultivation of community. Thus, both the first and the concluding moments of the story hold out the abyss, as the emptiness of Kyung, or what Zen master Hyung called wu-i-wu, nothingness, which Suzuki warns may push one down into a bottomless abyss, which will no doubt create a feeling of utter forlornness. We, along with the liberated one who has apparently returned to an unfulfilled hope, must recognize this forlornness or deep foreboding as always part of the initiative which propels or gets learning underway. If initiative is, quote, action taken to resolve a difficulty, quote, end quote, then the difficulty for the sage and the apprentice is encountered within the challenge of maintaining a steadfast openness in the face of resistance, derision, ridicule, and the modality of the self-certain subject. The foreboding is encountered here as the other beginning that initiates further movement in the face of resistance. But this other beginning is always coupled with and grounded in the originary beginning, wonder, and thus the initiative doesn't overcome the obstacle of resistance, but remains open to the possibility of this other receiving the gift of teachability and being turned around. To proceed with this original beginning is to authentically take up the Socratic work of cultivation, for it entails being moved by the creative initiative power of being's processual unfolding, which appears as the force of love. Learning is initiated, as we recall, from an offering, from a giving that does not ask for anything in return, but is, however, fulfilled in the mutual exchange, the reciprocal exchange of teachability. As we've said above, we can with some confidence call this relationship one of friendship and characterize the exchange as an expression of what we might be called the philosophy of love. So there's this other beginning, which is one of deep foreboding, and that's coupled together with the first beginning of deep wonder. I'm coding the other beginning as deep foreboding as the relationship of freedom with this abyss, but I'm also emphasizing here, and in a way that I don't know that I'm convinced of while I'm reading it, that the work proceeds with the hope that those who resist this form of learning, those who resist thinking, can be turned around, that can welcome paideia, that can be brought into the fray. And so this is somewhat inconsistent with what I was saying the last 2 days, but I guess what I'm going for here is the power is the Socratic example, right, of optimism. So if the work that I'm actually doing is one that is undertaking the Socratic embracement of wandering, that is to say, of going around, and as Arendt says, going around and around in circles, then one also has to embrace what she describes as his ability to cheerfully begin again. So there's this, I guess it's kind of Socratic optimism. Now Nietzsche famously criticizes this, but Nietzsche's nowhere, he's not at all part of this. Although his Zarathustra will become part of this later. At this point, though, he hasn't entered the scene as a conversational partner. So this is a kind of interesting meditation, because there's a lot of dissonance, a bunch of dissonance in what I'm saying here. I recall back these quotations from the Zen master Huang with the emptiness and the woo-wee woo. I quote Suzuki. I talk about the blues. All to try to get this sensibility of the twofold play as the mark of the two beginnings. But then bursting through that is this optimism. So, and that's why there's a sense in which it's a blues, right? So that there's this hope and optimism that pushes through the two beginnings. So the two beginnings are like two modalities: deep wonder and deep foreboding, and then our response to that is what becomes the blues, right? So these beginnings are modalities or ways that we're placed, and then our response becomes the learning, and the learning becomes marked by the blues. And so I'm going to leave it at that, because I've tried now 4 times to record this meditation, and better safe and sorry, and brevity seems to be the way to move here.